Today we're talking about the mass energy balance equation. It is not just a physics formula and a formula to create bombs. It is actually the blueprint for our universe. And we're going to get into exactly how. Now, keep in mind, this is the blueprint for the universe, not just us. This is how energy works. And basically, the mass energy balance equation, it says this in the name. This equation is an equation of flow. Abundance is flow. Abundance is not more of one or more of the other. Abundance is the flow between both. If you don't know what the mass energy balance equation is, the mass energy balance equation is E equals mc squared. E being energy, N being mass, and C being the constant speed of light at about 300,000 kilometers per second. And you're probably like, why is this the most important equation in the universe? Because the universe operates in flow, and when you understand how the universe operates and you tie that down to you because you operate exactly like the universe, you will understand how to move in life and how to actually flow, get in flow state, and actually participate instead of going against the grain, right? So, if you know anything about energy and mass are no separate. They're just different expressions of the same exact thing, right? Which is light. Energy is the unbound form, and mass is the bound form. If you think of it in numbers, honestly, Nikola Tesla wasn't lying when he said if you understand the importance of 3, 6, and 9, then you have the keys to the universe, because this is exactly what that is. Now, when you think of energy, all that there is, everything unified, energy creates everything in this universe. When you think of energy, you think of 9, you think of completion. When you think of mass, you think of the number 6, you think of carbon base. Mass is the 6. Energy and mass are mirrors of each other. 6 and 9 are mirrors of each other. They're inverse, polar opposites. Energy and mass, polar opposites. When you think of energy and mass, energy is the waveform. When observed, you create mass, you create particles, you collapse possibility, you create form. Energy is the wave, mass is the form. The difference between the two is how they're observed. And that's what's so important about this equation, because it's literally telling you about reality. Depending on how it's observed, you'll have energy or mass. Think about the observer effect. Everything is energy and waveform until observed. So you're like, what's the observer? What? And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that because C is the variable we're missing, and we'll explain it. So, just some key things. When you think of energy, you think of everything. Energy creates everything. You think of mass, you think of the physical, everything that is solidified into form, right? And think about polarity. I said energy and mass are literally polar opposites. But when you think of polarity, you understand that polar opposites does not mean they're separate. It actually means that they are a part of the same waveform. There's connection. When you think of hot and cold, they are on the same form. They're connected, right? They're just polar opposites. They're different expressions of the one thing, temperature. So, what actually allows them to be seen as polar opposites? That's where we introduce the observer and the triangle, the first rigid structure. If you know anything about geometry or trigonometry, you understand that a triangle is the first rigid structure and it's actually the most stable structure. A triangle is what creates form and what brings things into form. If you don't have that observer, you'll just have temperature. You actually wouldn't have hot and cold because they would just collapse into a waveform. That observer allows you to see the polar opposites. It allows you to observe the hot and cold as separate things. It allows you to see energy and mass as separate things. The constant speed of light allows energy and mass to be separated, right? So, where do humans come into this? Why are humans the most important part in this equation? Well, if the observer is the most important part in this equation because the observer allows the two things to be experienced separately, it collapses the possibility. If not, if there were no observer, there would be no collapse. It would just be consistent waveform, which can't be experienced, right? So the truth is, when it comes to creation and life, there has to be some sort of structure. Structure is material, but to get to material, you need energy. So they flow between each other, like the mass energy balance equation. Here's the thing, we weren't taught all the science and everything like that. And the crazy part is, I can get into a few things, but what I want to talk about next is the fact that CERN is understanding this at the fundamental level, because energy and mass work together. They're the same thing, right? But the biggest question in our reality is currently, why are we able to experience reality, right? If matter and antimatter, which are polar opposites, which should collapse into each other and create nothing or energy form, why do we have the physical world? Why do we have things we can see and touch and more matter basically than antimatter? And this is the question that everyone is asking. Scientists are trying to figure it out. CERN is trying to figure it out. The truth is, for there even to be matter and antimatter, it has to be observed. And that's showing you that the observer is the most important part of this equation. Without the observer, you would not even be able to distinguish matter and antimatter. You wouldn't be able to distinguish energy in mass, they would collapse. The observer is the most important part. It creates the structure. It's what allows you to experience each node separate, right? The observer, the constant speed of light. Light is consciousness. Light is in everything, right? Energy, light, consciousness, God, whatever you want to call it, that is in everything. When you think of the fundamental building blocks of reality, it isn't atoms. It isn't protons and neutrons. What actually builds protons and neutrons, which is a group of barons, is quarks. Quarks are literally just a stable structure. You have antimatter, you have matter. But for those two to exist and build a structure, you need the observer. The observer was never outside of the structure, it was never outside of reality. It's built into the building blocks of reality. God says, where two or three are gathered in my name, there I am in the mix. Two or three gathered in his name, there he is in the mix. The stable structure. The observer was never separate. Light has been built into the equation and has been built in the equation forever. Science is showing us this. Now, humans, where humans have the most important part is, humans, again, are the walking observers. Humans, in our dual nature, we are able to experience energy, the nine, and material, the six, at the same time. We have a material body, but we have access to the field, the infinite information, right? We have access to the nine, our mind, and our body is the six, the material world. And the three, which is the singularity, is the midpoint, mind, body, right? Nine, six, three. What creates coherence? Your heart, which creates your magnetic field. I also made a video about how humans are similar to black holes and how every underlying structure in this universe is literally simply the triangle. It's the structure. It's the three nodes. It's polar opposite, the observer. The observer allows the polar opposites. Without the observer, it'll be a waveform. Think about it. If humans weren't here to observe the world, it would just be energy, right? Nothing is created until observed. How do we have imagination? How do we have dreams? And we bring our dreams into reality. We are the observers. Now, I had this idea where I was just thinking, I was just like, okay, Well, kind of get to explaining it for a little bit, of people in life. And here's the truth: we all come in at different points. Some of us come in with more energy that we have to balance, and some of us come in with more material that we have to balance because we are the ones who balance energy and material. When observed, we create the flow, right? We can bring energy in through our physical form. We can create, we can write, draw, do art, we build, we create, we bring energy into form, right? We can do that. And we can also bring form into energy. It's about giving and creation and giving and creating. That's that balance. It's that turning that energy into mass and mass into energy, right? So here's the thing: we all kind of come in at different points. We come at different points. Again, 9 is the energy, the ultimate energy, the union. 6 is the material, right? Now, if you have a lot of material, you're rich to the world, you're successful. But if you just have strictly material, that's not abundance. Abundance is flow. Abundance is flowing energy between mass and mass between energy, right? So let's say you come in with materially heavy, so bottom heavy. You have a bunch of material. Look, you have no energy up here. You're lacking. Abundance is flow. When you just have material, you're lacking. The rich man materially is the same as the poor man. The poor man is rich energetically, but he is also lacking because he is not flowing that energy. Life is about flow. It's not just about holding and stagnating energy or mass in one section. It's about flow. So both of these people, ironically, even the world wouldn't believe this, but are experiencing the same struggle. They are both experiencing lack, stagnation. This life is about flow. It's about moving. It's about creating. The poor man, but energy heavy, he needs to create. The rich man, materially heavy, he needs to give. He needs to let go. As you can see, the 9 is up here, the 6 is down here, the 3, the human. This is the bottleneck. This is what creation transforms through. Humans are the transformation vessel for energy. You can transfer energy into mass and mass into energy. And think about it: you have mind, body, and spirit, right? That structure is in a human. We are the dynamic structure that allows flow. Honestly, without humans, there would be no reality. Again, it would just collapse. Matter and antimatter would be equal. But consciousness and light, which is in our vessels, was written into reality when reality was created. Quarks. Quarks don't just create matter and antimatter, they create the observer as well. So, this energy mass balance equation is simply about flow. The universe likes flow. We want flow in everything. We don't like stagnation. We don't like hoarding. If you have a lot of energy, create, express, write, draw, create. If you have a lot, materially give, let go. Life is about transformation. And I made a video about black holes. And if you know anything, it's just about transforming. And if a black hole is spinning prograde, so it's in coherence, it has access to infinite information, right? It can access anything. And that is the epitome of flow. When your mind and body are coherent, when everything is coherent, you're creating flow, right? This life is simply about flow. And we all come in at different points. If you come in very energetically heavy, you have to create. You come in materially heavy, you have to give. Not all of us come in high gap incarnation. Some of us come in balanced already. But you have to understand where you are. You have to understand the fundamentals of reality, and that's literally just energy and mass and create or give, right? And that's what life is about. And Tesla wasn't lying about the 3, 6, and 9. When you understand energy and when you understand material and you understand your point in this whole entire equation, you understand how the universe works, but it's not simply just about humans and energy and mass. It's about polar opposites and observer. It's about structure. Every structure has polar opposites and it has that observer. Without the observer, the polar opposites would be one single waveform. The observer is what allows good and bad. That's why we don't judge, because simply good and bad are the same thing. And I can get into so many other things with that, but this is a life of flow. Abundance is not this or that, abundance is both flowing between either. And energy can't be created or destroyed. So honestly, the whole purpose of life is continuing to transform that energy. The amount of energy that was here when it started is still the same amount of energy here now. But what allows us to experience and continue to evolve and grow is transforming that energy. When you hold on to things and when you stagnate things, you are going against the true path that the universe likes to take, which is flowing. So if you don't walk away with anything, just remember E equals mc squared, the mass energy balance equation. We are supposed to consistently be transforming, and as a human, you have a really specific, important role in this currently. You are here to transform your vessel. You're a walking bottleneck. If you look at any of my other videos, I talk about the torus field, I talk about black holes, and it's all just simply humans are the single point of compression. We are here to transform energy into mass or mass into energy. And we are here to create that balance, right? Technically, without the humans, it would all just go like this. But we are here to create, we are here to produce, we are here to evolve the universe, okay? That is all I have for now. Thank you for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comments. If you have anything about this, please let me know. And hopefully, I'll make more regarding this topic and go a little more in depth. Thank you.